Servue champions continuous upskilling, aligning with our sustainability goals and commitment to shaping the future of facilities. Management in the UAE, Servue Essentials, brings professional-grade services to your doorstep, offering on-demand AC maintenance, cleaning, water tank treatment, and more, accessible through a simple, intuitive mobile app. Servue, a subsidiary of Union Properties, 40 years of innovative facilities management solution.
Water is life. Essential, powerful, pure. We tried to capture it, to hold it in our hands, only to understand that it doesn't belong to us. But we never gave up. It was time to innovate. During our journey, we observed, we learned, and finally, we understood how to shape it. From this day on, we started to create, to incorporate aesthetics and design in our processes, always aiming for uncompromised quality and appreciating even the smallest drop of this precious element. Like water, we are always in motion, always moving forward, looking for challenges and providing innovative solutions. Inspired by nature, we gave water various forms and functions. At the Hans Grohe Group, we believe that living with water should be more than just another ordinary routine. So we create a space to retreat. It's a way of staying close to nature. Water is life and our passion. We've come a long way and we are proud of our history. It is our responsibility to move on now, to be more sustainable and drive our passion to perfection. Because water has always been around us. And at the Hans Grohe Group, we want to make sure it will be around us for years to come.
Facilities are the backbone of everyday life. They are the spaces where people live, work, heal, and grow. At TTE Facilities Management, our purpose is to enable these moments by keeping spaces functional, efficient, safe, and sustainable. Part of the Issa Saleh Al Ghurd Group, one of the UAE's most respected family business conglomerates, we are a leading provider of integrated FM services across all 7 Emirates. We deliver the complete spectrum of facilities management services under one roof, from hard services including HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and fire safety, to soft services including cleaning, hospitality, landscaping, and waste management. From retrofits and refurbishments that drive energy efficiency to security solutions that safeguard people and assets. We manage over 80,000 assets and deliver over 180,000 work orders annually, supported by 1,500 professionals. With a 96% client retention rate across sectors, including retail, healthcare, education, government, industrial, logistics, and utilities, we go beyond transactions to build long-term partnerships. At the heart of our success are our people, empowered by our globally accredited Skill Development Center, where more than 700,000 hours of practical training have been completed. Alongside training, The safety of our people is our highest priority. We foster a proactive safety culture, supported by digital HSE tools, near-miss reporting, HSE Connect, digital permits to work, and awareness programs across every site. Through energy retrofits and efficiency initiatives, we help clients meet their sustainability goals while supporting the UAE's Net Zero 2050 vision. To date, by reducing over 11,000 tons of CO2, we have created an impact equal to planting more than 500,000 trees. Our services meet the highest international standards of quality and safety. And with multiple awards for innovation, education, and safety excellence, we continue to set benchmarks in facilities management. TTE Facilities Management, empowering efficiency, enhancing environment.
Testing 1, 2. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody had an absolutely amazing kickstart of their day, but we're here to make it just a little bit better. Welcome to the Sustainability Innovation Forum 2025. My name is Mina Vucic, and I will be your host today. We're honored to bring together leaders from construction, hospitality, design, and business, united by a shared goal, and that is to drive meaningful and sustainable change. This forum is a space for bold ideas, for real solutions, and for cross-industry collaboration. Over the next sessions, we hope you gain fresh insights, forge new connections, and eventually, I just want you to leave inspired to lead with purpose. On behalf of Construction Business News Middle East, Design Middle East, Hotel and Catering News Middle East, and Entrepreneur Middle East, along with BNC Publishing, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our sponsors here today. Our gold sponsors, Numaya Real Estate, ServU, and Hansgrohe. Our silver sponsors, ACOM, and our category sponsors, TTE Facilities Management. Please can I have a huge round of applause for all of our sponsors here today. Now, I am a Gen Z, and I have to pressure you about this just a little bit. Please be active on social media. Post your pictures, engage, comment, make your reels, make your TikToks. But in all of this, do not forget to use the hashtag SustainabilityForum 2025 and tag us on all of the social media accounts that will be shown here on the screen. And just to place a little bit more pressure on you guys, there is a live stream happening on the YouTube channel, the CBNME YouTube channel. So in case you're not here today, you can watch it. In case you loved it so much, you could always rewatch it in the next couple of days. It's going to be there. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome the beautiful Vibha Mehta, our editor-in-chief of Construction Business News Middle East, for a couple of words. But I would like to welcome her with a round of applause, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to be with you today. My name is Vibha Mehta, Editor-in-Chief of Construction Business News Middle East. It is both an honor and responsibility to welcome you to the Sustainability Innovation Forum 2025. As His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum says, we do not inherit this land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. If we don't protect the environment, our children will not find what they deserve. This forum is not just about celebrating progress. It's about building a legacy of responsibility for generations to come. Sustainability is now the driving force of our region's future. The UAE has launched the first blue bond to safeguard our oceans, while Saudi Arabia's green initiative is planting billions of trees and reclaiming vast tracts of land. Across GCC, projects like NEOM and Masdar City are proving that innovation and environmental stewardship can thrive together. These are not symbolic gestures. They are bold steps that weave sustainability into the DNA of our growth story. As we come together today, let us remember that we will build is not only for us, it is for those who will inherit the future we shape. I look forward to the meaningful conversations and collaborations that will emerge from today's forum. And lastly, on behalf of BNC Publishing, we welcome you all. Thank you.
right, thank you, Vibha. Now, I would like to invite our first panel on stage today as the Sustainable Construction in Action. Please come on stage, Mr. Majid Fayyad, DSM Strategy and Policy Lead from Dubai Supreme Council of Energy. Engineer Omar Al Arif, Chief Executive Officer of Construction Division of Abdullah Al Arif Investment and General Manager at Noresco Contracting LLC. Manal Shawish, Senior Manager at Sustainability Advisory at Atkins Realis. And our wonderful moderator, Vibha. Round of applause, everybody, for our panelists today, and hope you guys have an amazing session ahead.
Good morning, everybody. So we are doing the first panel, so of course the pressure is going to be quite high on us. So before we kickstart this entire session, I want each one of you to give one sentence about what you guys do and what sustainability means to each one of you. Manal, we can start with you.
Hello? Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today on this beautiful forum. My name is Manal Shawish, and I work at Atkins Realis. I lead the sustainability team in the Middle East, and we basically work as advisors for construction, real estate developers, helping them make sure that their projects are sustainable. They're taking into consideration green building practices and sustainable measures, all working together to make sure that there is a sustainable future for all of us.
Great. Omar?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Omar Al Arif. I'm the CEO of the Construction Division in Abdullah Al Arif Holdings and the General Manager of Noresco Contracting. We've been in the market for the past 40 years, and I'm the third generation in this business. So ever since, we've been just building in Dubai.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Majd Fayyad, DSM Strategy and Policy Lead at the Dubai Supreme Council of Energy. I lead strategy and policy on demand-side management, integrated water strategy, and circular economy. And the Supreme Council of Energy is the governing body in Dubai tasked with policy and strategy development of the energy sector.
Lovely. So, I'm going to ask the first question, which is going to be the opening, and then we can individually jump into each of your roles and one particular question for each of you all. What low carbon methods are actually working on site, from construction sites to your demand side that Majid, your role is, and what's holding them back from being more sustainable? Manal, you want to start?
Yeah, of course. I think we're lucky that there's a lot of innovative solutions in the market right now. We're seeing a lot of material that is less carbon intensive, recycled material. That said, there are a lot of constraints, I had to say, and challenges. So one of the challenges I would say it's the fragmented policies, maybe lack of a regulatory framework that is mandating more sustainable practices at the construction sites. Also, the lack of stakeholder collaboration, perhaps, lack of accountability. We see that contractors, developers, and designers might be working towards different goals. And unless we have these shared common goals, it's really hard to really implement and scale those solutions.
Great. Majid?
So that's a brilliant perspective also on materials, but what I would like to highlight is also the operations of buildings and the aspect of energy and water consumption in buildings. And in Dubai, we have a mature strategy, the demand-side management strategy 2050, which focuses on improving the efficiency of the whole built environment. So we're talking about the infrastructure, buildings, systems, devices, equipment, and everything. Focusing on building, we focus on two aspects. So we focus on new buildings and existing buildings. New buildings through building regulations and compliance, and this includes the Dubai Green Building Code, which recently, when we updated our strategy, we want to transition the building code to move towards more net zero ready buildings. So that's going to be coming in the future years. And another aspect on existing buildings, so focusing on existing buildings is extremely important, and retrofitting these buildings that might be inefficient. So we have a very active ESCO, energy services companies market in Dubai with retrofits with more than 18,000 buildings and villas that have already been. Can you hear us? Yeah? More than around 20,000 buildings and villas have been retrofitted. So there is a huge focus on the building sector, definitely, because of its importance in achieving our efficiency targets and our decarbonization targets. Another key area that I would like to highlight is cooling. You know, cooling, we have is a major load. 70% of our consumption comes from cooling in buildings. So focusing on efficient cooling is extremely important. Dubai has put concerted focus on that through the district cooling networks. Dubai has the largest district cooling network globally. So we're talking about 25% of cooling provided through district cooling. So that's a key also strategic area for us in Dubai. Challenges are definitely many. I would say engagement with stakeholders. There are challenges on the developer side, on the contractor side, but also on facility management and making sure that whatever is designed is implemented and is operating as it's supposed to be. And then there's also a challenge on awareness. People, are they aware about living more sustainably? If you have the best systems in place, but you keep the AC on all day at 18 degrees like we're here, so is it efficient or not? So I think it's also a choice of what we make as people and residents in Dubai.
That's very insightful. Omar?
Yeah, just to add regarding the point you mentioned of cooling, what we saw recently in the construction, there is a huge focus on insulation to avoid extra cooling and to make sure the buildings is fully insulated. The rules and regulations set are focused on U values nowadays. So that's a very good point. And the insulations being in place in the facades and in the roof are helping this point. One of the main challenges we are facing as a contractor is the availability of efficient and practical technologies. It's not very easy in the construction site to use everything. It's not like in the cars where you can easily have a battery generated car. In the construction site, we're facing a lot of challenges and difficulties in having the right and effective and efficient technology. That's one of our main challenges. And we mainly stick with the updated rules and regulations and green building codes. So whatever they set and advise, we follow mainly.
But, you know, Omar, you pointed out technology. Do you think that technology is sustainable?
Yes, recently we've seen the technology improved drastically. If you take around, say, 5 years ago, how many cars were electrical or hybrid? And take the numbers today. Same is happening in construction, but in a slower pace. As an example, one of the most commonly used equipment at site is the diesel-generated Walker vibrator, which we use for concrete casting. Today, it's an electric item. Diesel generators. Today, we have hybrid solutions, battery plus diesel. Solar energy. Okay, we cannot operate a full project on solar, but we can energize our night lights and everything on solar. So yes, technology is improving, but not at the rate and the pace we expect, because the construction is a temporary project. You know, we are there for, say, 2 years, 3 years, depends on the project duration. It's not a long term. So whatever we purchase is a short-term equipment and machine. And recently, yes, we see a improvement changing from diesel to hybrid to electrical. And some of the machines and tools are really efficient and feasible as well. We believe in the next 5 to 10 years, this will improve as well.
Interesting. Manal, from a consulting point of view, do you think that, I mean, my personal knowledge says that technology is helping consultants achieve a lot of work at a very faster pace. but what's your opinion when it comes to embedding technology and sustainability together in a project? Are there any challenges that you are facing?
Technology, and there's a lot of tools now that are really helping us in terms of as designers or advisors. So if we look at it now, we have these AI-powered simulations. It predicts the performance of buildings. So at the design stage, we're able to understand what could be the sustainability performance of buildings before going into construction. So that enables some of the decisions to be made based on data. It's what we call data-driven decisions. It really helps us as designers, as advisors, to influence the design, perhaps change the orientation of a building or change certain systems or material based on these tools. And we see it as well in operation and construction because we're able to monitor data at a real time. So you're seeing different operators or different stakeholders. They're able to see the issues in a live, let's say, in a live manner, and they're able to go in and address some of these issues, perhaps inefficiencies. They're quick to resolve the issues and ensure there's streamlining in operations and construction. And also, when I look at it from my day-to-day work, some of these digital platforms have enabled better collaboration between the designer, the sustainability consultant, the client, different stakeholders. So you see there is more coordinated collaboration. You see there's more transparency in terms of the goals that we're working to achieve, and just having that shared accountability through that data platform or that forum that allows for this coordination. So it's really changing the way we do things, and I think it's really helping in becoming more sustainable. And it's, how you embed it throughout from design stage all the way to operation stage is really key, and how we leverage different platforms or different technologies or different tools really to kind of drive that forward.
Great. Majid, what's your take on this beautiful combo of technology and sustainability?
So it's more about how we're using the technology, if we're using it properly or not, and if we're using the right technology as well. And I mentioned previously the importance of reduction of energy and water, and the key solutions here are energy efficiency solutions. And these technologies already exist in the market. They are technologically proven and they're economically feasible. So what is holding us back from adopting and scaling up these technologies, especially with our net zero targets? So I think here it's also a choice of using the right technologies is extremely important. I would say there's also an obsession in the market about, I want to be the smartest, I want to use the latest technology, but sometimes going back to traditional practices can be really good. So you highlighted cooling and the importance of insulation, and so that's, if there are a lot of practices in design practices that will help us reduce our cooling consumption without adding technology. So that includes passive design. So the size of the building windows, the orientation of your building, all of that is really smart design that you can implement at the start of the project. So technology and being smart is also being smart about the thinking about which solutions you want to use and which solutions would give you the highest value. What we're trying to achieve here is a valuable project or a building, So what we're trying is to focus on the end target. So our end target is not a certification, is not at using technology as much as possible, is to provide the most sustainable, economically feasible, environmental friendly project, product, or building. So I think focusing on the end target is extremely important, and then using technology, AI, in service of that.
Majid, if I ask you what are the 3 priorities that you would emphasize to transform the building sector for a zero emission future?
So focusing on net zero buildings, so first I think everyone would agree with that, is cost. You know, let's focus on the cost, how we can make our net zero buildings cost effective, so we can move from just a couple of projects here in Dubai and in the Emirates to mainstream adoption. So focusing on cost is extremely important, but also going back to the point I mentioned before about passive design and importance of aggressively considering passive design. You need to have aggressive passive design in buildings in order to improve the business case of net zero buildings. So focusing on these measures that are low cost or no cost measures from the design stage can really help in the cost effectiveness of buildings and net zero buildings. So that's the first area. I think the second area, which is also a priority for Dubai on the retrofitting side, is to move beyond the shallow retrofits. So when we talk about retrofitting of buildings, the first thing we hear is about changing the lights and, you know, adding a bit of sensors, motion sensors, and these 10% savings that you can get. And once it's done, you would ask a building owner or developer, they will tell you, yes, I've retrofitted my building. But is that a building retrofit, proper building retrofit, or a holistic building retrofit? So for us to align with the net zero targets, the global net zero targets, we need to reduce 30% to 50% of the building use. So, and that's without even considering the renewable energy sources and the supply of buildings. So definitely the second area would be deep building retrofits. And this would be as part also of a key strategic area within the Dubai's demand-side management strategy. The third priority is going back to people and the choices that we make as an end user. So if, as I mentioned, if we make the best systems in place, but operations is extremely important, and automating everything might be possible, but also we need that human factor, people that are living in these spaces, that are working in these spaces, to be also committed to achieving net zero. So, and I think this is also the last part of the puzzle. This end user contribution is very important. It can be 10% of the emissions. So if we do everything possible without the buy-in of the end users and us as building residents, we would not be able to achieve our net zero targets.
Thank you, Majid. Umar, from a contracting point of view, what do you think is the best way sustainability can be embedded in the process where the project delivery is not hampered and you're also saving cost by adding sustainability?
As contractors, whenever the developers or clients involves us during the design stage, it helps a lot. Because there where we can have our input regarding sustainability. As an example, for a housing project, if you change it to a precast, you save a lot in man-hours and resources and direct and indirect sustainable savings. Recently in buildings, we've seen that it's an old technology but has improved, but has to be implemented during the design stage, which are pods, ready-made bathrooms that are being done in a production line, coming ready to the building, put in place. So this saves, again, resources, direct, indirect matters linked to sustainability, rework. So our input is, the benefit of a contractor getting involved in the design stage is huge. We've seen this practice recently. Many developers and clients are involving us during the design stage, how we can have a better sustainable project, what are the items that we can add and remove. And as we said, regarding the cooling and U-value, it's a huge item because it is during construction and post-construction. Depends on the end user at the end, but our input during construction is very beneficial as well.
Thank you. And Manal, if I ask you what strategies work best from a consulting point of view, where you have to align with the global sustainability goals and the projects that I think Atkins is working on, some really big projects in the region. So how do you align all three angles, global sustainability goals, the projects that you guys are doing, and sustainability at its core, which is still evolving at a lot of aspects when it comes to construction?
That's a very interesting topic for sure, because at the end of the day, we are part of this world, so we have to align globally. We have to contribute to some of the global initiatives and aspirations and objectives. Um, the way I see it is that we have to take an adaptive, flexible approach. So while we want to achieve global frameworks or goals or targets, we have to recognize the limitations and the opportunities within our region and the unique characteristics of our region. So, water scarcity is a critical topic for us. So when we want to adopt these global goals or frameworks, we have to make sure that we transfer it into actionable local plans, let's say, that can be achieved in the context of the region. Um, One concept is I don't know if you've heard of it, the glocal mindset. So you want to think global goals, but at the same time you want local action. So it's really about understanding that one strategy may work in that particular region, but it doesn't transfer into our region. So it's coming up with these tailored solutions that reflect the socioeconomic context, that reflect the local environment here. One of the strategies that I've seen, or one of the approaches that I've seen work best, is the use of materiality assessments that take into consideration the region and its priorities. What it does, these materiality assessments, is it helps organizations align with some of the global frameworks, like the Global Reporting Initiative, the GRI framework. It allows it to align with T-Safety, the climate-related disclosure as well. But at the same time, it's reflecting the region, and it's speaking to the regional context. So it's really about making sure that we have tailored solutions. So while we want to align globally, it's important for us to make everything actionable, locally achievable for us. And that's key for us in every project that we work with. We're not extracting solutions that worked in the States and just imposing them into our designs or our strategies. We really tweak them to fit the local context.
Lovely. So I'm going to also open the doors for questions later, but before we get that, my last question to each one of you is, when I say a sustainable future, what does that mean to you? And we're going to start, Manal, you.
A sustainable future, so because I work in the built environment, I may have this focus of making sure that the built environment is sustainable. So for me, it's about making sure that existing assets and buildings are retrofitted in a manner that is more sustainable, helping achieve the net zero goals that we have. And at the same time, any future development or projects, they really have to be designed and planned from the get-go in a sustainable manner. Otherwise, we end up with construction and you're having to do a lot of solutions at the construction stage or the operation stage. So it's kind of getting all the different stakeholders to work together from the initial planning stage to make sure that whatever we construct or we design or we operate is sustainable from the initial just start point, I guess.
Omar?
I believe once sustainability becomes a culture, everything will change. It is the same as HSE, Health, Safety, Environment. 20 years ago, when you say HSE, everyone will tell you cost. It will affect me. What's the minimum requirement? Today, no one even checks the requirement. It's a culture. Everyone follows HSE. Everyone tracks LTIs and all the KPIs linked to HSE. Sustainability should become a culture. Once everyone believes in sustainability, no one will ask what's required. They will just follow it. And once we believe it will not affect our balance sheets, then you will authorize your technical teams, purchase team, to look for sustainable materials, methodologies, technologies, and the construction team as well. So it's a culture that has to be embedded in everyone's mind.
Great. And Marjo?
It's a difficult question. But I think once we realize that we are just part of this world and everything around us other than humans also exists, it's also about nature, about different elements of nature, animals. So we're all living in harmony. This is what a sustainable future is for me. And it's also also I'm building on the cultural aspect. It's a responsibility. It's a responsible future for us as people who can think and change. So it's all about responsibility. Sometimes we get asked, and many people say that we need more awareness about sustainability, there's lack of awareness. And I would say that sustainability is not an awareness issue. It's more of a responsibility issue. For us being responsible, I'm responsible for the future that I'm creating, for the impact that I'm creating. And we need all to feel responsible for this future. And once we feel responsible, we take this responsibility, we'll choose the right choices for us and for the planet.
Lovely. So I'm going to open the floor. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists here? Yeah. Can we have a mic here in the front? Please. No, they're getting your mic.
First of all, thank you for the panel. I'm Mohammad Arshad from Decoding Data Science. I wanted to ask one question that comes in a lot of panels and sessions about scope 2 and 3 emissions that go underreported. So I just wanted to hear from any one of you, the panels in the construction industry, how are you ensuring that these are reported? Because if it is not reported, then you cannot take any actions on this. Everyone is talking about scope 1 emissions, but the 2 and 3, no one is talking about it and it is not getting reported. And the first thing about taking any action is we need to start reporting it and the management to know about it. So I wanted to know any one of your thoughts about this.
Who wants to take the question?
I can start. So scope 2 is addressed definitely, because when we're talking about scope 2 emissions, we're talking about the electricity supplied to the building. And for instance, in Dubai, we have a net zero target, 100% clean energy target by 2050. So that would ensure that scope 2 emissions of buildings is addressed. Scope 3 is the major issue when we talk about many sectors, including the construction sector, and addressing it would be definitely is very challenging. On the building side, focusing on embodied emissions is critical and important, on disclosing embodied emissions and on asking suppliers about the emissions related to building materials and the construction processes. All of that is extremely important. And I think we started hearing more about scope 3, definitely much better than 10 years ago. That wasn't addressed. Even if you remember 10 years ago, the conversation around net zero wasn't that much. So we were talking about, I remember we were developing a study with Emerson Building Council, and we titled the study Nearly Zero Energy Buildings, because we weren't sure that the market is ready for the word net zero. Now we're talking about net zero, we're talking about whole life cycle net zero. We're talking about operational emissions, but also embodied emissions. So there is a push. There's definitely challenges. If we're going to talk about the challenges of scope 3 emissions, we need a whole day to speak about it. But it's also I think we are on the right track to addressing it.
Great. Do we have any other questions? I think we need a mic here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Toye from Crisite Consulting, and thank you so much for the panel discussion. I have about 3 questions, and my first question is touching on what Majid just mentioned about the embodied emission and the carbon. So how do we ensure that during constructions, in terms of reporting and tracking, how do you ensure that it's rightly tracked? That's number 1. Then number 2, I believe MENA also talk about the AI-driven technologies. So how do we ensure that the AI, in terms of the power generation, because as you are aware, there's a lot of energy use during, using AI. How do you ensure that as a result of using AI for sustainability, you are not also still causing, in terms of intensive energy use? So how do you kind of manage this? And my number 3 question will be around, my number 3 question will be in terms of generally in UAE, according to the circular economy policy, what tool do we think it's the best in getting us to net zero? Thank you.
I think we're running out of time. We can answer one of the questions. Manal, do you want to give him an answer?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Answer the point around AI, and as you said, that is an energy-intensive solution as well. And the way we need to think about it is really to have an integrated framework that looks at the different aspects. So if we are leveraging technology or AI, what does that mean in terms of energy consumption? And then looking at the other side, like the benefits of leveraging that AI technology and how much we're reducing energy emissions or energy consumption or emissions. So if we look at it from a holistic, integrated approach, hopefully, or the idea is that we don't have trade-offs and we have one integrated, comprehensive solution to it. We're balancing the benefits with the risks or the trade-offs, basically. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We are running out of time, but you guys can meet them outside once the forum is over. But thank you so much for joining me on this panel, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and you guys also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful panel. Before we start the next panel, I just wanted to say that somebody lost their phone. Please check your pockets, your bags. There's a sort of animated space. Anybody lost their phone? Call in once. $100,000? Call in twice. $100,000? Anybody? $110,000? They're not in the room. Anyways, I'll leave it here and I'll ask again after the next panel. If you do hear that somebody lost their phone, please let me know. Up next we have, is greenwashing stalling the journey towards the UAE's net zero 2050 goals? Can I please invite on stage Karim Hagar, Senior Advisor of Sustainability at Roland Berger, Lamis Al-Hashimi, co-founder of Palmade, Dr. Beatriz Garcia, Associate Professor at Department of Law, Economics and Management, Sorbonne University, Abu Dhabi, and Faisal Sajwani, Managing Partner at MC Consulting, as well as our beautiful moderator, Alia Mahreen Ahmed, the Features Editor at Entrepreneur Middle East. A round of applause for our panelists and our moderator, and I hope you guys enjoy this session.
Can you hear me? Okay. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second panel of this year's Sustainability Innovation Forum. We've just had an insightful 30 minutes or so discussing how sustainability permeating in the construction industry is a win for all. But what we're about to discuss in the next 30 minutes is a fancy little term called greenwashing, which was actually coined in the year 1986 to describe a situation where sustainability initiatives are more facade than fact. The question we are tackling today is quite simple. Are the ESG strategies by UAE businesses causing more harm than good in the long run, particularly with regards to the UAE Net Zero 2050 strategy? Because one of the main tenets of that strategy is that sustainability needs to be incorporated into industrial policies. We have a wonderful mix of speakers for you here today. We have two sustainability consultants who have nearly 2 decades of combined experience between the two of them, a founder of a UAE homegrown sustainability business, and an academic who is an expert in international environment law. Thank you all for being here today. I will start with Faisal and Karim. In your respective roles, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to observe the more minute details of this phenomenon within businesses. So let's start with the basics. How would you define greenwashing? And how have you seen it manifest across the UAE businesses currently, especially? I'll start with you, Faisal.
It's a very good question to start with. So for us to get a better understanding of what greenwashing is, we need to look at how corporations are tackling sustainability as a whole. So it's the general perspective from the corporate side that sustainability is just a PR exercise. And when we have that underlying perspective, a lot of the times we would see corporations looking at it from a marketing perspective purely. Now, greenwashing as a definition is basically misguiding the general public by disclosing something to conceal something that's much bigger. So an example I would like to give is a company that has a recycling initiative, but then their supply chain emissions are completely untouched. So it's focusing on a smaller segment and trying to have the general public say, oh, okay, well, they're doing something sustainable, but then when it relates to their core operations, their emissions are quite high. So the idea behind greenwashing is misguiding, and at the same time, a lot of the corporations are not, let's say, directly responsible for doing it intentionally. So some of them actually just look at it from a PR perspective, from a marketing perspective, and it's just at the end of the day ticking a box. But when you come in from an educational point of view and you clarify what greenwashing is, you have a much more, you can say, engagement into the sustainability space, into actually reporting and making sure that you're integrating and disclosing these initiatives accurately.
Karim, I'd be happy if you'd add on to that, but I'd like to ask a bit of a more specific question to you. And I feel like it's a bit rhetorical, but I'll ask it for the sake of opening up the conversation. Is the lack of standardized reporting and regulations a major cause for this gap between ESG policies and reaching the targets? And more importantly, how do we shorten this gap?
Thank you. Let me go back just to the definition of greenwashing as well, and thanks for providing this very clear definition. Just to add, greenwashing can be also done at the industry level. So we're seeing, and you saw the plastics treaty that in a way failed, but there is also greenwashing that happens for, let's say, the plastics industry at the industry level, whereby a whole industry is focused on, for instance, recycling, but not necessarily on reduction of the production of single-use plastics. At the company level, we are also seeing a lot of companies that are not only masking their harmful activities, they're also not necessarily aware of all their, so companies need to be a bit more curious in understanding and their supply chain, their full life cycle, and working with suppliers to report on that in a more transparent way. For reporting, in the UAE in particular, I think we've come a long way, and so I think we're, as the panelists on the previous panel said, we're progressing really well, but what maybe is lacking is like a binding law that, like in Europe, like with the CSRD, with bodies that are really auditing and enforcing that particular law. So this would help the entire industry align to specific standards that are a bit more prescriptive in the UAE. That's something we lack here, yeah.
Lamis, I'll come to you next. In addition to being a founder of a business that is quite directly addressing the issue of single-use plastics, you've also had a background in corporate governance, so I feel like you're the right person to ask this. Like Karim just mentioned, there is a need for more uniformity in the regulations and the laws, but we've also come a long way. Do you then feel that there is also this concurrent situation where companies are not necessarily fully aware of the legislations that are already in place, and as such, they're not able to leverage them efficiently enough?
Thank you, Halia. Yes, I would say as co-founder of a startup that is in the business of manufacturing biodegradable products, I think the issue is greenwashing isn't always malicious, but it's often dangerously misunderstood and unintentional. And especially in the space of SMEs, I find that it's not that they don't follow the guidelines or the policies. At first, they just don't know where to start. It could be very overwhelming. And it also is the case where they view ESG as separate from their core operations. And having that kind of support, not necessarily an in-house sustainability officer, but having frameworks or peer-to-peer collaborations from bigger companies that can guide them, I think that could be one of the solutions to bridge that gap. Post-COP28, we did see a pickup in the awareness that companies have with regards to ESG policies, but there still is a gap between policy publication and policy implementation.
Dr. Beatrice, in addition to being an academic, you've also in the past offered your sustainability consultancy services to government and private entities. So I'm going to flip the conversation slightly for you and try to incorporate the consumer's point of view as well. We're clearly in a time when consumers are incredibly wary of the kind of brands that they associate themselves with. During such a time, in such a landscape, what would you say are like the top markers of an authentic and truly impactful ESG strategy for a business, so that as consumers too, we can better demarcate between the real stuff and something that's a marketing gimmick, for example?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on this beautiful initiative. So I guess the question is about what are good or bad policies that we can follow or not follow, perhaps. So I guess us as consumers, we need to look for evidence, and this comes with data and independent verification. So, for example, companies should align with our existing frameworks. So, for example, in the UAE, we have a recent climate change law adopted in 2024, which requires companies to undertake MRV, meaning provide data that is measurable, reportable, and verifiable as well. So this is a good protection, I guess, and a guideline for us to see where a policy that has such things, such as MRV, could provide those good guidance for consumers. Also, I guess a good policy, if you wish, would also have some sort of oversight and disclosure. And we have those frameworks here. For example, the ADGM ESG disclosure framework does provide that platform where companies have to report and provide data, and this data is, again, verifiable, right? And I guess, broadly speaking, good policies, they should also avoid the quick fix trap, meaning that we'll look at specific products or one-off programs or campaigns, but instead of that, policies should look more at the broad picture. So really looking at the sourcing, the product design, the practices, the business practices, so we can tackle the broader picture and not only one specific event or one specific product. Thank you.
I think we'll now move on to something that businesses across the ecosystem might struggle with often when it comes to ESG strategies, and that is the issue of implementing them and the financial costs that come with it. And I want to talk about this issue in the context of SMEs, and I'd like to explain why. I'm pretty sure most of us in the room here are quite aware of how SMEs form the backbone of the UAE economy. They contribute up to 63.5% of the non-oil GDP. By the year 2050, the government hopes to have 1 million SMEs operating in the country. That's one reason, but also the UAE actually has quite a few regulatory frameworks in place for the bigger organizations which have a turnover in the millions. And Dr. Beatrice actually touched upon it just now. It's one example is the ADGM ESG disclosures framework. So Faisal, I'll come to you again for this. And it's a pretty simple question really. How can SMEs overcome the monetary hurdles of implementing ESG policies while also remaining competitive? Because more often than not, they're operating in very saturated markets.
Well, there's an obvious misconception that in order to implement ESG, you have to have a huge budget to be able to implement it, which is not completely true. So for SMEs to be specific, ESG isn't a luxury, it's about survival. It's about how you gain a competitive edge in a market that's ever evolving and a market that's requiring you to be resilient. So SMEs, as you mentioned, they contribute to more than, I believe, 63.5% of the GDP of the UAE. So that's a huge segment of the GDP that is purely coming from SMEs. Now, from our perspective as MS Consulting, if you're an SME, you're most likely a supplier to a large enterprise. So now you fall under the scope of their reporting when it comes towards their supply chain. So we had very, let's call it, obvious examples with our clients. One specifically that we onboarded last year that came to us with the specific issue that they're not able to participate in vendors, nor be able to renew their registration in some vendor portals just due to the fact they're not ESG compliant. So if you're not able to conduct business, or there's an opportunity cost for you to not embed ESG into your own business model, then you're losing on a huge market share and a large amount of capital. So one way for you, for an SME to be able to implement ESG is start small. You can do the low-cost energy efficiencies. There's digital ESG tools that you can implement. You can have your own scorecards, KPIs, to be able to track your performance much accurately. So small steps do go a long way, and eventually, in a couple of years, you'll be able to embed ESG as a whole and be ahead of the competition.
Perfect. Karim, I'll ask the same question to you, and feel free to add on to what Faisal has just said, but I also want to add an add-on question there. Do companies, big or small, require sustainability advisors? It's a bit of and again, it's a bit of a buzzword that goes around in the landscape right now. So if you could, follow up with what Faisal said and just answer that.
I totally agree with what Faisal said, and I think that's the wrong perception is that sustainability is a trade-off with financial performance. Sustainability is good business. And being more sustainable could also mean generating more business, generating more revenues. So that's the first part. Definitely SMEs should also integrate sustainability as a function. It could be a part of the executive team. So ideally the CEO or the leadership team should be thinking of sustainability. So it should be on the agenda of the founders and the leadership team. And I think one element that should be avoided in general is putting sustainability under marketing and comms, which in many cases can lead, without necessarily the intention, but could lead to greenwashing in a way. So definitely sustainability is required, and it should be on the agenda of the CEO or the leadership team.
Lamis, I'll come to you next. Karim just mentioned that sustainability is a part of good business. let's say businesses do manage to implement those right non-greenwashed ESG policies. How much of that, in your experience, has contributed towards achieving the rewards that businesses seek anyway, monetary benefits, investor friendliness, customer loyalty, and the like? And I'd also like to ask you regarding that, how much of that needs to be a collaborative effort as opposed to just sort of working in silos, for example?
Well, in the case of Palmade, so from the start, when we were looking at the palm waste, our first question was solution seeking. How could this be part of the solution? Then every decision that we made after that, whether product development, whether material resourcing, was driven by impact. And until we were able to finally get the product, then we communicated that to our customers. And so in our case, everything that we do is kind of the opposite of greenwashing, because it's our core operation, it's our end product. I believe the monetary benefits of whether or not you're in the business of creating the product that is impactful, or you're in any other business but trying to be as compliant and as sustainable as possible, the monetary benefits today, it's more like a long-term investment, because you will have cost efficiencies. When you source responsibly, you will save on costs that way. And investors are more informed than ever today. And they do ask questions of more than what do you make? They ask deeper questions. Who do you serve? Why do you make them? Where do you source your materials from? And so if you gain that confidence and that trust from the investors, that results into monetary benefits. Consumers also are very much, they're deeply value-driven today. And so that being ESG compliant is also aligning with consumers and what their expectations are. So I believe that it's truly essential. I mean, whether or not it's part of your core operations or it's part of your KPIs, the monetary benefits today they supersede expectations.
Dr. Beatrice, I'll come to you next. The UAE's Net Zero 2050 strategy, one of the goals is that by that year, 200,000 job opportunities can be created, or they aim for it to be created across the solar, battery, and hydrogen subsectors. From your perspective and through your research, what are your insights on how implementing the right ESG strategies can not just contribute towards this particular goal, but create a more lasting, contribution towards the economy?
Thank you so much. That's a good question. So I think companies should be working with the so-called enablers of the UAE Net Zero strategy. So there are basically three. One is climate finance. Second is technology and research and development, R&D. And third is upskilling the workforce. So if we start with the number one, basically companies should be aligning their investment and projects to the UAE Net Zero strategy. I think that would be the main, objective or goal of companies. Number two is creating the technology and the capacity, for example, for us to transition to a low energy economy, have the technology to do that, and all this requires R&D, research and development. So this is like a second in the to-do list, I guess, of the companies, right? Third point would be, as required under the UAE strategy of 2050, is to really come to this upscaling of the workforce. So basically, we need to start from now, prepare our workforce to the future jobs that are being created and will be created with the low carbon economy. So I guess these are the main things that companies should be looking at.
You touched upon climate finance over there, and I wish we had the time to discuss that, particularly with the UAE Loss and Damage Fund and the Altera Fund that has been in the works for so long. Unfortunately, we are down to the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to ask the last question to each one of you. What is the next one immediate step businesses in the UAE must be taking to, one, ensure they're not greenwashing, and to make sure that they're implementing the right sustainable practices in their companies? I'll start with you, Karim.
So I think at the government level is to create legally binding laws or framework at the national level, and then adding on top of that the auditing and enforcement bodies that are statutory and can be independent from the rest of the government. At the company level, I believe that it's separating slowly sustainability from marketing and comms and reporting directly to the board and the CEO on the board.
As my colleague said, government intervention and framework, or having some sort of a green seal, I think is much needed to bridge that gap. I think in company level, having a true and honest, clean audit of yourself and where you stand, and just place a reasonable small target and then grow big from there. Not compete on image, but compete really on impact.
Right. Dr. Beatrice?
So I guess from the consumer perspective, we should, as I said before, be looking for data and evidence and policies and initiatives that do require some independent verification oversight. From the company's perspective, it is important to really align with this framework, legal and policy framework that we already have in the UAE. Examples including the Consumer Protection Law of 2020, for example, disclosure frameworks such as the ADGM ESD disclosure framework and others as well. Possibly aligning products with certification, assurance certification schemes such as Emirates Quality Mark, and others, also to make sure that your product or your service really aligns with some like officially approved standards, and this will give and provide assurance to the consumers as well. So really looking at what is already out there and trying to align your products and your services and your practices to those legal policy frameworks that will give you some assurance that you'll be, and this will probably help you avoid greenwashing from the perspective of companies and consumers as well.
So, as my fellow panelists just mentioned, I think the most common theme we have over here is third-party verification. So, to answer that question, I'll tackle the regulatory point of view and the corporate side. So, from a regulation point of view, there needs to be a much more inclusive approach towards building regulations, specifically introducing future ones. So creating regulatory sandboxes, bringing all the stakeholders on one table and having the communication, the conversations, because companies who can afford to find loopholes will find loopholes. And if they're not part of that regulation, they haven't contributed to it, they're going to find a loophole most likely. So there is the responsibility aspect. When you're a part of a regulation and you've contributed to it, you feel obliged to adhere to it. So that's from the regulation point of view. From a corporate side, that's something we have in MS Consulting. It's a rule of thumb, basically. If your ESG report looks better than your operations, then you're greenwashing.
Perfect. I think that's a nice note to end the panel on. We have about 5 minutes to ask questions. I see a gentleman with his hand up already. Please go ahead, sir. The mic isn't working.
Thank you.
Okay.
Came along. Anuj Chopra, ESG Plus. I also teach at University of Houston on sustainability. two-part question. First, be great if you can differentiate between ESG and sustainability, because there's a confusion and lack of understanding in the general populace on that. And two, considering the lack of education, what is the role rather of social license and social equity, and why that is not coming up in the frameworks in UAE?
I love the second question if anyone wants to answer that.
So that's two great questions. I'll tackle the first one to begin with. Sustainability is a broad umbrella. And when we look at ESG to be specific, I like to say ESG is the lenses that help you look at sustainability from specific perspectives. One way to put it is there are three pillars: environmental, social, and governance. And when people, or generally speaking, hear sustainability, they think climate change, environment. And ESG puts a much more focused perspective on sustainability, saying, hey, the environment is important, however, the social and governance aspect are equally as important. So to tackle the second part of your question is social equity. So the social element in ESG is extremely crucial, because without the social, you cannot implement the environmental nor the governance side. It's people who actually get to contribute to it. And from a training perspective, it's when we look at corporations, we look at ESG and sustainability trainings, it's just a box-ticking activity. We'll train X amount of employees, and they'll disclose it. However, the executives don't go for these trainings. So the way we flip the equation is that we start with the executive level, the executive board. We tell them, hey, if you're going to implement sustainability on the whole corporation, you will have to sit through those trainings, because it comes from you, and then it's a trickle-down effect. And we make sustainability and ESG relatable to every person in every department. How can ESG make my work better? How can I be more efficient? How can I be more productive? So now you have an internal buy-in. Once you have an internal buy-in, which is the social element, that's when the real implementation starts happening.
All right. We have about a couple of minutes left if there's anyone else with a question. I don't see any raised hands. Okay, no raised hands, all right. The panel must have gone really well then, answered all your questions. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Lameez. Thank you, Dr. Beatrice. And thank you,
Thank
Faisal.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a discussion. Thanks, Alia. Thank you, panelists. That was a great panel. Up next, we're going to have panel 3, Reducing Carbon Footprints. Sustainable Strategies for Designers, Architects, and Suppliers in the UAE. Can I please invite on stage Leila Sobek, the founder and director of BMA Studio, Basil Omara, design and principal at Al Valcarce Architects, Sean Mayers, Middle East Master Planning Director at DLR Group, as well as Dr. Rana El-Daba, Assistant Professor, School of Energy, Geoscience, Infrastructure, and Society at Heriot-Watt University, Dubai, and our moderator, Hannah Abdul-Zahir, Sustainability Manager at Summertown Interiors. Round of applause, everybody, for panel 3. And the stage is yours, guys.
Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion titled Reducing Carbon Footprints, Sustainable Strategies for Designers, Architects, and Suppliers in the UAE. The panel brings together a stunning group of people that I've had the chance of talking to earlier. We're architects, designers, sustainability professionals, and researchers. We're here to explore how the UAE can cut carbon footprints through resilient cities, innovative materials, and human-centered design. Before we begin, I'd like to give each one of you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your work so far and what brings you to sustainability. Why are you passionate about it? Maybe we'll start with you, Leila.
Can you hear me now? Hi, I'm Leila Sobek. I'm a founder and director of BMS Studio. And my personal interest in this kind of discussion, that we hear sustainability on a daily basis, but then how we are going to implement it in our actual projects, how we can, as designers and leading the process to end up, having other stakeholders to also follow us and to implement all the sustainability. So at BMS Studio, one of our interests is always, to proceed with that, and we have it from all the passive, design solution till to find out. So hopefully the discussion today will help all of us, to have a guideline how to, to process with all this. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sean. I am an urban designer, the director of master planning at DLR Group, and our studio practices critical, thought-provoking urbanism at the intersection of housing and livability. And I'm just really passionate about designing cities, better cities, and specifically how we can use the design process to move from the ideas phase into the actual implementation phase. So how can we use design to garner stakeholder agreement, get people to work together to achieve a shared vision? I think that's how we can design and build better cities.
Thank you for that. So I'm Dr. Rana Dava. I'm an assistant professor at Heriot-Watt University. My main passion is about contributing in informing I would say the future architects and how we would introduce that idea of the sustainability, smart materials, and building for tomorrow from the beginning, since year one when they enter the field of architecture and design, as well as I'm an active researcher. I'm focusing on the programmable and smart materials and how can this contribute in saving energy. Yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Basil Omara, design principal at Valcarce Architects. And actually my passion, and actually our passion, I believe everyone, is how we can design and have a creative design and innovative design, yet understanding the human-centric approach, which is very, very important, because in the end, this is a fine line on achieving a nice, interesting kind of an approach, which actually fulfills both sides, the sustainable and the functionality of any of our designs. And today's topic actually is one of the really interesting points that we need to tackle, and better now than later. So let's get on it.
Let's get on with it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And I think to kickstart the panel, we'll start big picture. So UAE cities are growing fast, but climate risks like extreme heat, water scarcity are growing too. I'd like to direct my question to Sean, where you've worked in New York, Paris, Dubai. What lessons from dense, walkable cities do you think can be adapted to the UAE?
Thanks, Hannah. In simplest terms, we are terrible at designing streets. Those cities all have exceptional streets, and I think in doing that, we can overcome this obsolete thinking that it's too hot in this region to really commit to delivering exceptional public space. So, because this is what is one of the components of sort of great global cities. So on that point, our streets have been designed to move traffic, but not to support the street life alongside of it. So most of our streets are poor for giving our residents options to get around, stifling walkability, not delivering vibrancy or that sort of spontaneous social gathering and spending that energizes the world's greatest cities. So I think if we were to start with streets, we would be able to make some sort of exceptional leaps forward in our urban design.
Yes. Oh, you can follow up. Sure.
It's actually a very good point that Sean mentioned here. And I think it's related to the fast-growing city that we are living in. So we, as designers, we hold the responsibility to a little bit, be more proactive, to push all the boundaries and catch up with, the growth of the city. That's very, very essential.
I love that, and I love how you guys are tying livability with infrastructure as well. And I'd love to move over also to Basil. You've designed across very diverse communities, and how do you think you can keep resilience or climate resilience rooted in cultural and social realities, not just tech and policy?
Well, actually, this is a really nice thing because our understanding when it comes to the culture aspect, it's not only about certain kind of design elements that we use into our design and we can say that this reflects the culture, but we need to look at the overall picture because culture includes a lot of different aspects that we need to correspond to. So when it comes to the culture, we need to understand the behavior, we need to understand the needs of each and everyone, and this is how we can come to a modern or a new design that copes with the era that we are in, yet it respects the users or respects the people who are using this space. So, for example, one of the important points is understanding the context itself, understanding the social needs, understanding the privacy needs when it comes to the people. So this kind of level is very important, and this is what we have been trying to achieve in the past years, hopefully from even like a private entity up to a governmental kind of a sector. So on this kind of a scale, it's very, very important, and it's a fine line, and also understanding the nature of the environment that we are building in. So technology is upgrading every day. We are having more and more new technology, new materials, new trends, but this kind of technology, when it's combined with the environment and combined with the social requirements and the personal needs, that's a success in my opinion.
Yes, I definitely agree, and also making sure it feels local, not imported. And moving on to Leila, you work in luxury and hospitality. How do you make sustainability part of the story without compromising the guest experience?
I think we need to redefine the luxury. I mean, it's already been redefined. I think sustainability is a part of the luxury, and is a part of the experience that every guest, needs to have. And looking at the history, of Dubai, the examples of hospitality projects that it's been, use, let's say, at least the local material that tells a story of the culture, of the results happening in the deserts, that they are bringing in the local material and local aspects of design, like nice tents over the pool, like horizontal shadings, all those that resembles, the culture and old architecture here. I think that's becoming a part of a guest, experience. That's, I think, what matters, that the guests embracing all those, narratives.
Yes, and it's seen as adding value rather than restricting design.
Definitely.
And for Dr. Rana, from your research, what breakthroughs in adaptive design excite you the most for cities undergoing climate stress?
Okay, I think there's a lot of things, not only one thing. But basically, when I'm looking at programmable materials and smart materials, and how these things is keeping always contributing and expanding every now and then in the research. So for example, when we try to look at self-healing materials and growing materials, that is never the same as last month or the month before. So every time you can see that how the city is changing. It's not only, this is how it will look forever for example, let's say 20 years. No, it will be always responding to some sort of I would say a stimuli. So maybe that stimuli could be, let's say, a flood that could happen suddenly, or a change in the climate, or a change in the population. So how the city would be keeping always responding to that based on these type of materials?
Yes, it's kind of like drawing an analogy where a building feels like a living organism that responding to the environment rather than just being static. And I think for us at Summertown, we see resilience flowing all the way inside. So into low carbon materials, healthy finishes, adaptable workspaces, cities not being just sustainable. They will not be sustainable unless they are truly sustainable in terms of the places that people live and work in every single day. And with that note, I'd love for us to get a bit more proactive and move into sort of a mini debate. Everyone talks about carbon neutral concrete, recycled composite, bio-based materials. We've heard about them a lot in different conferences, but adoption is slow. Why? Is it cost, supply chains, or is it mindset? The floor is yours.
I think all of this playing a huge role. You know, it's like a cycle, it's like a chain, all connected. When the supply chain is not enough, the cost will go up. And also the mindset, looking at all this process and ecosystem as a experimental. So the clients are reluctant to, to listen to advices of the designers, to go for any of those. I think looking at the successful examples like in Europe, how it's happening, I think the governing laws are playing a huge role here. And we already have the regulations, but reinforcing those within the regulations, I think, is the main keys. Giving the values, make it a market differentiator, any client goes for those. And then I'm sure, we have availability of, chain of the suppliers here. And when we help one part of this cycle, I think all of them becoming exactly.
I'd like to add a point here as well from a researcher background. I think it all begins from trying to think about something new in the research, and that takes a lot of time, even before it begins to be implemented, and also thinking about all this process of implementation, stakeholders, and cost. But actually proof of concept and the idea of testing, researching, and validation as well takes a lot of time. That can take just to make sure of something that is really working. You need to have some sort of a lifetime validation. So how would that keep responding? What is I would say, the threshold for that point? Does that also contribute to the delay of those implementation?
Yes, definitely. And what I'm hearing here is that it's mindset, supply chain, but also one question, and Leila already touched upon this a little bit. What do you think will drive real change? Is it technology pull or regulatory push, or maybe a mixture of both? This is open for the other panelists as well. Bassel?
Well, when I think about it, the point is when you look at the overall picture, here in the Middle East, or especially in the UAE, the market or the construction is driven by a fast kind of a revenue, okay? So that's why everyone is looking how they can construct faster, sell faster, get it adopted, and move forward to the next plot and, construct more. So as long as not having a kind of regulatory that will push towards a certain kind of direction or requirements, it might not be adopted, because I agree with what has been said before. It's part of the cost, part of the availability, part of the mindset. That will not be able to change until there is something that proves, okay, we need to implement this. We are looking at kind of a scoreboard, the same as sustainability. When sustainability was introduced in the construction, in the beginning it was a vision, then it became part of a checklist that is optional, and then it was mandatory, and so on. So if this can be the direction that is going to come from the government or the authorities to actually provide a certain kind of liability on the construction, but at the same time, it needs to be available. I cannot mandate a certain kind of requirements, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but without having the tools to be able to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think of it a little bit differently. As an urban designer, I'm really working at a different scale, right? So while we're always speccing native and adaptive species, and local materials, things that sort of reduce the carbon footprint that way, it's really about the uncertainty that you're referring to that I don't have a control over, whether those will be specced or implemented. So I think of sustainability from my perspective more as like a triage or a pyramid where materiality is like the cosmetics. I'm mostly interested in the design of the urban form because that's really ultimately what decides how sustainable or smart a city can be. So if you get those relationships right, dense, walkable, convenient, access to beautiful streets and open spaces, that reduces, that changes behavior, gets people outside, you know, that's where I focus on my approach to sustainability.
I think at some point, if we are relating, you know, like we like it or not, I think cost plays a big role.
Definitely.
And profitability and ROI, every project, you know, I think plays a big role. If we create some sort of motivation, I think that comes to other sectors of the market, like facilities in the bank, you know, lower property taxes, you know, that they can motivate the client to be open to use all these new, you know, like materials. And then at the same time, when the needs of those sort of materials are more, of course, you know, the supply chain will catch up, will come because they also need a market. And we know like suppliers that they are very active in Europe, and we got to know very nice materials like that they are available and we've been introduced to. And but we only need one pilot project to implement those. And I think that will gain the trust of the clients, of developers to use those sort of materials.
Yeah, so I'm hearing we need the carrot, we need the stick, we need to see return on investment, which is something I'm a really strong proponent of. I think that not everyone worldwide is going to share our same passion, and you need to be able to convince everyone and anyone to join into the cause. For us at Summertown, yes, we've made transitions to choose low VOC materials, EPD certified, FSC wood, but it all comes down to making it a standard practice where nobody's even questioning what you're doing, whether it's in terms of strategy, whether it's in terms of site operations and a part of the design of every project. Dr. Rana, I see you have something
So I
to
think
add.
this point is very important, as there is always that misconfusion of when I say it's a context-driven architecture, it's always looking at context, but this is a very important point, that it's not only about the climate, but it's also about the availability of the materials and the regulation and the policy in every city or country. So this thing would make the architecture should be different from each, or the city should be different in its implementation in each part of the world, not only because of the climate, but taking overall the idea of, I would say, the circular economy at this point.
Bessa, you have something to add?
Yeah, it's just because there was a really interesting point Leila mentioned is about having like a pilot project. Actually, when you think about it, manufacturers and suppliers can come up with the solutions, can come up with the materials, but how can they, you know, market it and actually drive it to the right place? So if it comes as a point of a joint venture between designers, between the manufacturers, and between the government itself, there could be an opportunity, because when you create a kind of a pilot project or a kind of the first project that implements these kind of materials, now from a designer perspective, you will understand the material even more. From the end user or the stakeholders, they will understand how these materials look and feel, and this will give the kind of trust that maybe still not a lot of people are taking this initiative to step in and test the materials itself. So this could be one of the interesting points that we can take it forward.
Yes. It's a chance for everyone to see value in what you're trying to pitch, rather than it be just an abstract concept. So I'd love for us to switch gears a little bit and go into a future scenario. So I'm going to head over to Sean, and I want us to time travel for a moment. Imagine if it's 2035, the UAE has already hit its net zero goal early. What does a day in one of your cities look like?
Great question. It's 2035, 10 years from now. We're all here still. Imagine what it takes for that to happen. I'll still be here. The next 10 years, Dubai, I hope I'm predicting the future, actually.
Hope so.
In
Fingers
the next
crossed.
10 years, Dubai outpaces the provision for construction with the provision for public transport. It's now common to live and work in the same neighborhood. I believe this, and really it's talent acquisition suicide if you put your office not near a metro station. But I really think this region, for some reason or other, has a misguided like obsession with luxury. And for me, luxury is really being able to walk to work and drop your kids off on the way and spend, exactly, right? That's real luxury. So I would like to, that's what I want to see 2035. You have 5 different types of public transport you can choose to get around, and there's almost no need to own a car unless you want to go dune bashing in the desert.
I love how you linked it to everyday life. It's something I'm experiencing as someone who just recently moved to Dubai, so I'm just trying to work around this idea of not being able to walk to work. But yeah, so, and back to Dr. Rana, how do you think smart materials and computation make buildings adapt in real time?
Yeah. So smart and programmable materials are really need to be well implemented these days, not only because, like just to say I'm a smart building, I'm designing a smart building, but it really contributes to the idea of saving energy. When we're looking at programmable materials, specifically this idea of, for example, let's say hygroscopic materials or bimetal materials, so these are just in real time how they would respond to the change in the climate with zero energy. Like it doesn't, for example, does not have this complex mechanism of having, I would say, a sensor, an actuator, and and some sort of programmable interface behind that. It's just about the integration of the material, latent properties already, and how can I understand this latent properties of the material, and then I use a specific stimuli so that it would respond directly based on that, which is actually I'm having a kinetic system, but that kinetic system is responding on time, in real time, with zero energy. So that is what is very well needed this day. The problem of that, I would say, is it's still in a little bit of having some sort of a delay in an upscale level. So it's still very on a very like a plot idea or a plot study idea. It's still not well implemented, but I can see this maybe in 2035.
Maybe. So that was very future forward, but I think even now, if you zoom in on interiors, you'll find like smart lighting, IQ sensors, energy dashboards, even those little things that are currently available, but using them at scale could transform impact and take us to that 2035 scenario. I'll love to go to Leila now and ask you if you can share a project where beauty, wellness, sustainability all came together successfully.
Oh, I can imagine one. At least. I think, as I said, it all comes from the first step, how you put the rules and how you're setting up your design from the very, very early sketches in every project. And I think bringing in that sort of mentality that becomes one of the priorities, one of the most important priorities to when you're setting up a project, a design. And all those passive, like consideration, site orientation, how we can even, go back. We have a lot in this region to borrow from when it comes to design. Those central courtyards that it's beautifully, controlling the climate. And I think quality in design, honestly, it goes to considering all this. It's not just, of course, it's important. Functionality is important. Aesthetic is important. But that's also important that you consider all these factors, because then you would guarantee durability, comfort, effortless, impact of different, other stakeholders will come on the picture. And I'm a big fan of a modular system. And I think now developers trying, we have these examples, big developers already use it, but then now you see it more and more because it's reducing the waste in construction, reducing the time of construction, reducing the cost, and it helps a lot, to produce a project which is at the same time aesthetic, but considering all these values.
Also scalable.
Scale, exactly, scale. I think we have some factories here and within the region that providing this sort of system, and they are becoming more and more. So I think then, as we discussed, when the need for some sort of material system is more, the availability becomes more.
Yes. definitely. And Basil, I'd like to move forward to you. You've designed in some challenging contexts. Any example where community needs changed your design approach towards sustainability?
Well, one of the interesting projects actually that when we were designing it is because of the challenge of the location. We came up with a project, Gaia, and actually how we can create a kind of a prototype that can adapt in multiple locations. So this is a challenge, and maybe this could be like a good example that I have on top of my mind. So how can we design something that is creative and can blend in with the nature, whether it's in the desert, whether it's in the forest, whether it's on the beach. So this kind of a design was inspired by the nature itself. And the other point is, how can we make this less impact on the environment and the context itself? So coming up with an idea to do a small prototype that is a plug and play, that can be easily manufactured outside and then shipped to site with the minimum impact on site, because you need to respect the context. This was the solution. So from us as designers, we are able to achieve this kind of a prototype that can be easily implemented. And now we are developing it even more. We are reaching out to governments and to a lot of project sites that actually we are going to implement it. So hopefully in the near future, we can see the first prototype of Gaia, and we can test it in different sites and see the feedback itself.
Would love to see that.
Yeah.
So as our panel is coming to a close, I'd love to close with a quick fire round. Okay, so rapid question. One bold action you want to see in the next 12 months to cut carbon in the built environment. The floor is yours. Maybe we can start with Sean.
Sure. Easy. No more gated communities. That's my answer. The gated community is the most popular form of housing being built right now, and it's also, I would argue, the worst form of housing, especially if you talk about urban areas and the need to live more sustainably. But the market loves them, and people love them, and it's clear to understand why. So in 2050, if we've achieved our net zero targets and there's no gated communities, that's something that I would love to see, yeah.
I would say it begins from the education, I think. So challenging the students and challenging these mindsets of thinking about very new ideas, like, for example, the plug and play, and what we did previously here as well in some of our undergraduate students in Heriot-Watt University, of this collaborative project between different disciplines, thinking about something which is a very small duration, just getting the main idea of trying to understand something new. I think it all begins from this point. Yeah.
Okay. Basil?
I think for me, it's going to be the fast collaboration between designers, manufacturers, and the government or the stakeholder sector. This will be really like an interesting to create the prototype, a kind of a building or any kind of function that actually shows the possibility that we are still hearing about and trying to test, but it will become the near future.
Leila?
I agree with everyone here. I think there are a lot to think about. And for me, I'm really very much interested to use some sort of, let's say, bubble deck slab in one of my projects. And that's actually, as a pilot project, will open, a lot of doors for other clients, to be more motivated, for example, to use these sorts of systems.
I would love to see that, and I agree with everyone. And on our end for Summertown, I would say the action is simple: making sustainable interiors the standard and the default choice in every UAE project. So I see we're running out of time. We've got 24 seconds. Do we have time for questions from the audience? Does anybody want to ask anything? Nope. Okay.
Hello?
Oh, questions. Sure. We have one question.
Oh, hello. Good morning. My name's Sonia Allen. I'm from Guest Worldwide. We're probably the world's largest guest room supplier, and we attend these events to understand what's happening in terms of sustainability and how we can support the designers, the architects, and the hoteliers within region. To that end, we're going to be the first global company to start manufacture here in Dubai this month for amenities, which will reduce the carbon footprint to support the hotels. But more often than not, we're coming up against problems. When we are asked to tender for a new hotel, we are coming up against problems with design, an architect in the guest room to enable us to be able to implement a sustainable product, i.e. amenities, for example. How can there be more collaboration between the designers, the architects, operations, and potentially us as a supplier to ensure that we're supporting you and we're supporting the sustainability steps of the Middle East? To anybody? Oh, there's a hand up in the audience.
Honestly, is really important because I believe for a successful project, all stakeholders needs to be on board from day one. So not in the last minute or not just to tackle kind of a checklist, let's say,
Right.
because we want to do this, so let's find out the solution at the last minute and implement it. What I would understand is at some points, maybe there is the value engineering trying to cut down the cost of the construction or so, but in the end, it will depend on the project itself. Because if already the developers or the owner, they know what they are reaching out to, it will be from day one, it will be implemented, along with, of course, the nice flow of collaboration going through the whole project. So this is important to be from day one, not from the last minute.
Yeah, and that seems to be what's happening. We're given the problem when it's sort of at the last minute, and we're having to try and resolve that issue. So I just hope there could be some form of collaboration and how that could happen to ensure that we support everything at every step.
I think there is a very important point here for designers and architects, and I think we need to stay on top of our game. So that's why the knowledge of market and what's available in different sort of materials and other, technologies available, we need to make time for them, to get to know them and to know what's available, and we can, as my friend said, we can incorporate it from the very early stage in design.
Okay, be happy to do that.
Can I?
I'm so sorry, but we'll have to cut the discussion. But you guys are more than welcome to have it outside. We just have a tight timing. But thank you so much, panelists.
Thank you, everyone.
And if you can take your round of pictures now, we'll move on to our next panel. Alrighty, up next we have our final panel from kitchen to corner office, driving sustainability across the hospitality chain. Can I please have Tiffany McGrath, Director of Sustainable Hospitality at Sustainable Kiosk, Johnny Dalanese, Head of Marketing at Chef Middle East, Yelena Kazika, the VP Strategy at Global Hotel Alliance, and Matt Roberts, Director of Sales at Unox, Mia, China, and Korea, as well as our moderator, Omar Shihab, Founder and Chief Sustainability Officer at Michelin Green Star Restaurant, Boca. Absolute pleasure having all of you guys here today, and good luck on the panel. Round of applause, everyone.
We're live. Okay, the last session on Friday afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omar Shihab, and I run a restaurant not so far away from here in Dubai's International Financial Center. It's called Boca. And apart from obviously running my business, I spend a lot of time pondering what it would take for our industry, the hospitality and the food and beverage industry, to have a slightly more positive impact. And obviously on the places and the people that we work with and operate in. I love this industry. So restaurants and hotels aren't just businesses. They're places we gather, recharge, and feel at home. But we can't forget that we are part of the food industry. And as most of you know, that the food industry is responsible for 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions of impact. 1/3 of the world's food, the food that is produced, is never consumed. And obviously this is happening while more than 800 million people go hungry to bed every day. And more so this year, a famine is happening right at our doorstep. The hospitality industry represents 10% of the world's GDP. We employ 1 in 10 people, 60% of whom are women. With that scale, not just comes responsibility, but obviously a huge opportunity for change and a positive impact. Now, the word sustainability has been thrown around a lot recently, and it's starting to maybe sound a little bit hollow to some of our guests, some of our customers. And guests in the food and beverage specifically are hearing it alongside the words local, organic, vegan. They're starting to use all of that jumbled together and interchangeably. And so it obviously risks being a little bit meaningless. Greenwashing only makes it worse, and as we heard from the previous session. So what we probably need is a little bit more capacity building to understand what sustainability truly means for our industry. We also need a little bit more transparency into sourcing, into the impact of the resources that we're utilizing, and into our role into the community that we operate in. And yes, sustainability can be measured. Energy, water, waste, menu composition, to certifications that are rigorously assessing all the claims that we're making. But it only works when it's holistic, woven into every role and every decision, not siloed off into different departments. And that's why our conversation today is quite important. We have people from across the hospitality value chain and the players who can prove that change is not only inevitable and possible, but in the case of sustainability, it's really about increasing efficiencies and contributing to the bottom line of the businesses. So I'm going to jump right in. And one important aspect in hospitality overall, and perhaps in food and beverage and for restaurants, is the sourcing. So sourcing ingredients, and in a city like ours, in Dubai, in an arid climate, is not really straightforward. The market demands a lot. It's a very, very competitive industry. And I've been involved in this, in a lot of research and working with a lot of local producers, from conventional farms to hydroponics. Local doesn't necessarily mean sustainable. So we really always need to rely on the professional value chain and a lot of these importers that are bringing a lot of produce to us. So imports are extremely important, but we need full traceability and transparency and control. So I'm going to move directly to you, Joanie, from Chef Middle East, of course. So you deal with a lot of chefs, and I believe in the power of chefs. Chefs have a lot of transformative power. They influence trends and influence people. So what are the chefs, your customers, asking you when it comes to sustainability? What are some of the things that they're demanding? What are you hearing from them? And what is Chef Middle East ready to deliver to them?
So thank you, Omar, for bringing this question. So I agree with you first. I think chefs do have a role of influencer when it comes to adopting more sustainable practices in kitchens and drive faster change. The way it works at Chef Middle East is that we deal with a lot of chefs from different operations, ranging from large hotel groups to fine dining restaurants to more casual dining outlets. But overall, we can tell that there's an increasing interest from chefs toward moving into more sustainability-related practices. They're interested in our own credentials as a supplier, sustainability credentials, our commitments, but also how we can equip them better with solutions to work in their kitchens so that they can in turn improve their own sustainability efforts. So we have a lot of requests coming through, mostly on more sustainable ingredients, but when we try and understand truly what that means, we're not really getting the clarity we need to then be able to find the right solutions to fill that gap. So for some chefs, to your earlier point, made in local sourcing means sustainability. For others, it's more on traceability from the source. So where is the product coming from, and also who's behind the product. Some others are more inclined to adopt some plant-based alternative options in their menus, and some others are just very focused on packaging material to be more sustainable for the food and beverage products they're ordering and receiving. So it's quite easy to get lost in the middle of all this. So it's important for us as a supplier to basically identify what we think matters the most. And for that, we have to heavily rely on our own suppliers that actually bring the product to us so that we can bring it to kitchens. And their own ability to also innovate, to be able to provide those products and satisfy today's customer changing needs and requirements. So of course, we're gonna, we're adopting, including new products in our portfolio. We're looking at where the product comes from, who we source it from, because it's also important that our own sustainability goals align with the ones of our suppliers. But it's a constant challenge to make sure that we find the right solution for our customers, really. So a lot of requests coming in, not much clarity on what they actually need, because they do not know. They do expect us to provide the definition of what responsible sourcing means, and challenge accepted, and that's something we're trying to take up with our own suppliers. So in terms, for us as a distributor, Chef Middle East, and then distributor in this region, we sit right in the middle of the value chain between the producer, manufacturer, and the chef in his kitchen. So we also have a role to educate our customers. So for that, we recently opened a brand new culinary training facility, and that helps us basically providing green cooking classes. So we raise awareness also on waste management practices in kitchens. But it's also helping us having a platform where we can partner with global entities like Food Made Good, for example, to really bring to life and align the understanding with our customers as to what responsible sourcing means and what is also possible or not, considering the region we're in. So yeah, that's
yeah, no, it's such a critical role and a big responsibility that you have, because you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of chefs obviously understand that this is something really important and critical, and they need to make that contribution, either obviously coming from them or from the operator that they work for. But it really means different things to different people. So I see you as an enabler for that sustainability journey that a lot of restaurants and chefs and restaurateurs and operators want to take on. So really fascinating, and a lot of work that has to be done. So well done, thank you. I'll move straight to you, Yelena. You bring together independent hospitality brands with the loyalty program GHA. Can you please introduce us quickly to the work of GHA, and then maybe give us a rundown on your work on sustainability with your clients, the Green Collection program, highlighting some of the pillars that you work with under that program.
Sure. Good afternoon to our audience. I will take just 30 seconds to introduce Global Hotel Alliance. We are the world's largest alliance of independent hotel brands. We bring together 45 hotel chains with 850 hotels in 100 countries. So a huge portfolio. If you are, like me, based in the UAE, you will know for sure some of our brands, such as Kempinski Hotels, JA Resorts, Anantara and Avani brands, Paramount Hotel, Nikki Beach, and of course Rotana Hotels that joined the alliance earlier this year. So we are the creators of the loyalty program called GHA Discovery, and GHA stands for Global Hotel Alliance. So the program is adopted by every brand in the alliance, by every property, and together we deliver GHA Discovery to 30 million of our program members. So now, there are several reasons why we are proud of GHA Discovery. And one of them is that the program is co-created by our program members. It was the case when we launched the program first in 2010. It was the case when we massively enhanced its value proposition in 2021. And this is something we continuously do. So we are constantly in a dialogue with our program members, asking them what they like in the program today and where they see it in the future. And one of their asks for several years was to help them identify sustainable accommodation choices. So how did we react to that? We decided to launch a program initiative called Green Collection, which went live in 2023. So Green Collection is a collection of hotels, resorts, and palaces in the program that are committed to sustainability. And they are pioneering important sustainable initiatives in the markets where they operate. So we launched Green Collection with 200 hotels in 2023, and today we have 470 hotels being part of it. So I remain optimistic that in the next 2 years we will see the growth of the entire portfolio.
And it's quite a comprehensive, obviously, program. So it covers everything from construction, community, to protecting heritage and obviously the environment.
Yes, so when we decided to create Green Collection, we obviously, as everyone else, would imagine that we can come up with our criteria for obtaining hotels into Green Collection. But because the subject of sustainability is so complex, we decided to leave it to the experts. So what we've done, we focused on hotels in our portfolio that are certified by at least one internationally recognized certifying body, such as EarthCheck, Green Globe, Green Growth, Green Key, and so many others. So our hotels today work with 21 certifications globally. And when we select or we align, we engage with these certifications, we want to make sure that they base their framework on the 4 pillars of the GSTC criteria. GSTC stands for Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and these pillars are sustainable planning, economic benefits for local communities, it's protecting heritage, cultural heritage, and protecting the environment. Plus, what was also very important to us, that these organizations, they also audit annually our hotels.
Very fascinating, because certifications, I believe, are really critical, not to have them as obviously plaques on the wall, but to really offer that insight, that transparency. And I want to stay with you, Elena, because you've also done your own internally. So you've gone through the EarthCheck exercise?
Correct. So in 2023, when we launched the Green Collection, we felt that we want to step into the shoes of our hotels. And what we've done, we applied for the certification process with EarthCheck in 2023 to show our commitment to the Alliance, to our peers in the industry, to our program members, but also to understand this process a little bit better, because very often we hear that sustainability programs are just a badge on the wall. But from experience, they are not just a badge. So it's a very complex exercise. It's a lot of dedication and hard work of the entire team. So we went through the initial phase with EarthCheck in 2023 in October. It took us a year and a half to go through the analysis of our operations, review of our engagement, alignment of our policies, and we are just corporate office in Dubai with 100 employees. So our hotels have to go through a very difficult process, engaging process, and we know how it feels.
You understand what it takes. And it's such a critical exercise, because it's almost, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we've gone through a kind of a similar exercise. It's almost like an internal view of your own business. It's almost like an internal consulting exercise. But maybe I turn back to you, Joanie, and get your experience? Because you've gone through something similar recently as well with the EcoVadis certification. Can you tell us about your experience with that and what were maybe some of the learnings?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just we got the results for our second year EcoVadis submission. When we started talking about sustainability in the business, we quickly understood that we're going to have to equip ourselves with some sort of certification. And it's not just to avoid self-claim results, build credibility through using a globally recognized platform, but also to help us develop some sort of framework that we could use for the business and to really see the efforts. So we started looking into B Corp, EcoVadis, different certifications, and at the same time, and that's about 2 years ago, we started receiving requests from large hotel groups by the likes of Accor Group, Marriott, Hilton, to provide them with our EcoVadis scorecard. So that was a strong sign that we were heading in the right direction, and that's the step we took, obviously. I think year one results were more about giving us our baseline, understand where we stand against our peers globally, but also to help us identify where the focus should be for us to drive greater impact. For year two's result, I think they were a lot more anticipated because obviously year two is illustrating clearly how the business could make the progress they committed to and really demonstrate our own ability to turn actions into measurable results. So through the process, we learned a great deal of information about our own processes, stuff that we had and we didn't even realize or we needed to strengthen, and things that were obvious and we never had and we had to start implementing as well. Through that process, we learned that in terms of social and ethical performance, we actually had already quite good strength, and most of the work was really on our own environmental impact. So scope one, we started looking at what can we do, solar panel installations, with test driving vehicles, electric vehicles to convert the fleet, a lot of other different solutions such as route optimization software so we can reduce our fuel consumption. Scope two was also working in close collaboration with our suppliers to understand how we get together to find solutions around the transportation piece, because obviously transporting food from every part of the world into a region that is highly reliant on food imports remains the biggest challenge when it comes to emissions, and it's a daily work, I would say, and daily conversations and open dialogue we have with them to try and find solutions to help.
But it's such a fascinating exercise, and not really here, obviously, advocating for formal certifications because they can be expensive and not everyone obviously can afford them, especially if we look at the food and beverage industry and restaurants are highly fragmented, a lot of smaller ones. But just having some sort of audit, some sort of understanding of your own impact, starting with measuring waste, or obviously just looking at your bills of energy consumption, which is maybe a good segue to you, Matt. One of the perhaps hidden aspects of sustainability is the operational environment impact of resources, so energy, water, cooling, and heating. And you're in the business of innovative oven solutions. There's a lot of work that has been done, obviously, producing your ovens at a very high sustainability standards globally in terms of emissions. Touch on that briefly, but mostly for the sake of our discussion, how are you enabling your customers on their sustainability journey?
Okay, yeah, it's a really important point. There's a couple of difficulties from a manufacturer's point of view. When you are looking at how to be sustainable, number one is sustainability means different things to different people. Being a global company, sustainability in, say, USA is Energy Star or LEED certification, which is water. Sustainability in the UK is embodied carbon, how much carbon it takes to manufacture the oven. And depending where you are in the world, sustainability means different things. So we have to be really proactive and dynamic in how we create a sustainable oven. One thing we did in 2021 as part of our yearly ESG report, we produced a life cycle report of the oven. So from raw materials, logistics, packaging, manufacture, outwards logistics, use, and then end of life. And during this, we calculated how much carbon is produced at every stage. And the results actually opened our eyes from where we were innovating to where we are now. Because 98.95% of the carbon produced is during the usage stage, which is a 10-year life cycle. So the chef during them 10 years uses more carbon than any other stage at, as I say, 98.95%. So even if we have the most sustainable logistics, the most sustainable manufacturing, which we are very conscious of, we have solar panels and everything, we can only alter 1.05%. So it completely changed our innovation and what we were looking at for sustainability. And we started looking at how we can help the chef be more sustainable. And again, there's a super fine balance we need to remember here. Price. We cannot just put lots of insulation, lots of glass, and make it the most easy to run oven. It's got to be priced well. It's expensive to open restaurants and hotels in big cities these days, so this is a big consideration. And number two is, it shouldn't hinder the chef. So we spent 3 years working with chefs to see how we can help them rather than hinder them. And with the latest AI technology, we've actually introduced artificial intelligence into the oven, which gives the chef pointers on how to be more efficient. And it does stuff automatically for him. Say, if a chef comes in the morning, puts all his equipment on, which is they need to do, they need to be ready, the oven will detect there's no food inside and reduce the temperature by 25%. And this creates a 30% saving on energy. And that allows the chef to carry on with his day and not change any of his habits that he's learned over the last 20 and 30 years. But he's got a more sustainable piece of equipment, so he doesn't have to do anything different. And then the AI will watch how he uses the oven during the week. And at the end of the week, it will give the chef a report about where he can be more sustainable. Like whoever on Monday is in the kitchen, they leave the door open too long. Let's next week try and close the door a little bit more. And we give the chef these reports at the end of the week, and it's a little bit funny for them, they enjoy it. And what we found when we worked with restaurant groups during the trial of this, it actually made the chefs think more sustainable in the kitchen. So not just with the usage of the oven, they then think about food waste. They think about, okay, let's not turn the hob on full, we turn it on a little bit. And we actually started to change the mindset of the chefs. And we got some real nice positive feedback from it. So we did a side-by-side comparison of our oven without the AI technology and our oven with AI technology, but more importantly, with our training. Because when you're bringing in something new like this, we've got to be there on the ground to train the chefs. Because at the end of the day, their focus is on producing good food. Sustainability is still second nature to most. Not Omar, but a lot of chefs, it's still second nature. So they've got to produce the best food. So we've got to train them how to be more sustainable and still get the results they want for their customers. And we did a side-by-side comparison. And the 8 ovens which are used in the normal way compared to the 8 ovens which we trained on, this was a large restaurant chain. The ones we trained them on and turned the AI on were 45% more energy efficient than the ones that are used in the existing way. So now we've got to tell the market there's better ways to do it. There's better ways to grill, to steam. If you grill in an oven, not just our oven, any oven, you save 45% on energy compared to grilling on an open flame. So going back to the original point, there's lots of different technologies out there, but the key is finding the balance between price, not changing the chef's job too much, and the innovation.
No, really, such a critical topic here is obviously looking at this as increasing efficiencies and helping obviously restaurants or hotels or essentially businesses. Sustainability and profitability go hand in hand, because if you're able to make these savings, if you're able to make a lot of these conscious decisions, is when you start driving, perhaps contributing to the bottom line. And I like what you said there about chefs, that naturally professionally trained chefs and chefs in general understand what it means to utilize the entire ingredient that comes into the restaurant. It understands what it means to drive efficiencies. Something that, Tiffany, you and I have spoken about, right? On our call yesterday. Perhaps I bring you in to make sense of all of this. You also have a holistic view on things, and you work with obviously a whole a whole range of providers, operators, hotels. What is your take on all of this? What are you seeing the current state of sustainability among operators? Are we still talking about capacity building? Are we still talking about carbon literacy? Have we moved the dial a little bit? What are you seeing in terms of greenwashing as well?
With Sustainability Kiosk, we try to connect suppliers with hotels. We work with consulting with clients to help them along their journey, as well as training and capacity building. So we do see a broad spectrum within the hospitality industry and everything that everyone has said today, actually. So yes, everything is, it's quite important to train the chefs, to talk about food waste, to get people on the journey. Energy efficiency is very big. We look at helping hotels become more efficient, teaching the management that you're not actually always looking at cost to try and, you know, see sustainability slightly differently.
Fascinating. So I think we're coming down to the last 3 minutes. If we have questions, we've cleared this side of the room. I can see that. Yeah, it is lunchtime. We won't keep people waiting. But I think maybe what we try to establish here is that we really need to move beyond the box-ticking exercise into real measurable impact. And you can measure sustainability in our industry. A defined, obviously, ownership and mandate needs to be there. At the end of the day, it's a strong business tool, and it offers valuable insight into one's operation. And if executed and managed well, we can contribute to savings to the bottom line. And at the end of all of this, data is what tells you what. So when you measure, you get the what aspect out of it. But really, what you will also start to realize that you're getting a lot of why, and that comes through the storytelling exercise that comes from running all of these sustainability initiatives, whether it is understanding where that particular product comes from, that ingredient, that food, how it was produced, how it arrived at your doorstep, to the efforts that are being done by a lot of our own community, so internally, our teams, our staff, or how we're contributing to the community that particular restaurant or hotel exists in. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Thank you, my fellow panelists. Hope you've enjoyed it, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Perfect. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much, Omar. And thanks to all of you who are here right now for joining us today. I hope these conversations were extremely insightful. And we would once again like to thank all of our sponsors. Gold sponsors, Nemar Real Estate, Servue, and Hans Grohe. Silver sponsors, ACOM, as well as category sponsors, TTE Facilities Management. Now the doors have opened for lunch. Hope you have a tasty lunch, everyone, and thank you once again for coming.